we wanted to rekindle our relationship, rather than just being complacent, going through the motions. We wanted to fight for us, because we could tell if we continued down that path, I mean, we didn't want to be together just for the kids. We want to be together because we want to be together. We want to build this life together. That's why we got started together. And so as part of that journey of really getting clear on how we communicate, how we show up for each other, how we support each other, we also started thinking, you know what? We got to keep dating because, we're at this point, 10 years ago, we were 13 years into it. And it's like, you know what? I know for a fact, Christy, my wife, she wasn't the same person I met day one, 10 years later, she's a different person. I'm a different person. But how do we know that if we don't set the intention to be constantly rediscovering all those cool stuff about each other?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. I'm your host, Dr. Mo, best-selling author, award-winning podcast host, keynote speaker, and speaker coach. My goal for every episode is to elevate, educate, and motivate you personally and professionally, which is why I interview health-conscious, fitness, and relationship experts like Dai Manuel. Dai is a super dad dating his wife with a lead-by-example way of living and a contagious personality. He is on a mission to positively impact 1 million role models around the globe to lead a functionally fit life through education, encouragement, and community.
You can't say Dr. Mo ain't tell ya that fear magnifies the consequences of failure. What are you scared of? Why are you afraid? I'd rather live like I'm dying than live to die. Any day, my heart is pure, my soul is safe.
Welcome, Dai.
Hello, Dr. Mo.
So excited to have you here from Vancouver. How's the weather up there?
Well, it's freezing. Like literally.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's quite cool. But you know what? As far as other parts of Canada today, it's not that bad. It's again, I'm going to speak in Celsius. It's the coldest place in Canada today is minus 44 degrees Celsius.
You kidding? Oh wow.
No, I wish I was. Because I'll tell you, the people living in that part of way up north, there ain't no kidding over there. That's cold. So I'm only at freezing level right now, which is weird for Vancouver because our climate's just like Seattle. So we don't get snow very often. We usually get a lot of rain, but we've had a cold spell. Some of those winds come from the north and yikes. So but overall, it's Vancouver and I don't care what the weather is. I love it here.
Well, I know you're a cool guy, but I'm going to say stay warm. And
Thank you. Thank you.
It looks nice and cozy where you are right now. And you appear to be at home, which works well with my first question. How did you come up with the concept of dating your wife? And I've seen photos of your beautiful wife. You guys are an amazing couple. I love it. Let's just jump right in and talk about that.
Well, Dr. Mo, I know that you're really big on language.
Yes.
And not only how you communicate with others, but how you communicate to yourself, right? Those voices that are between our ears, they're loud and they can get really loud. And, it was about a decade ago, actually, my wife and I, we, like any relationship, we had been together already for, at that point, almost 13 years. And we'd already had 2 kids together. We'd experienced a lot of life together. We met very young in our early 20s. And, the thing is, let's be honest, as we age together, in relationships with that significant other, that life partner,
right?
It's easy to get just complacent, right? To get into a routine and to forget sometimes what got the whole thing started to begin with,
Hello.
And my wife, I give her full credit, because she is the one that's always reminded me of language, and especially some of the words that I say. Some words that I write, and just even sometimes when I'm talking about myself, and I love that about her. Sometimes it gets really annoying, like it does, is that constant correction.
Personal growth tends to be that way, doesn't it?
Yes, so on point. And we wanted to rekindle our relationship, rather than just being complacent, going through the motions. We wanted to fight for us. because we could tell if we continued down that path. I mean, we didn't want to be together just for the kids. We want to be together because we want to be together. We want to build this life together. That's why we got started together. And so as part of that journey of really getting clear on how we communicate, how we show up for each other, how we support each other, we also started thinking, you know what? We got to keep dating because, we're at this point, 10 years ago, we were 13 years into it. And it's like, you know what? I know for a fact, Christy, my wife, she wasn't the same person I met day one, 10 years later, she's a different person. I'm a different person. But how do we know that if we don't set the intention to be constantly rediscovering all those cool stuff about each other? Because as we grow and we develop, we do have new interests, new wants, new desires, new dreams, new visions. And so if we're not actively, especially proactively, constantly creating this space and the time to be dating one another, whether you're married or not, it don't matter, but just having that intentional dating and to rediscover and have those conversations. And it's that constant falling in love again. And so that really was what happened. She started referring to this idea of we'll always be dating each other. I was like, you know what? I love that. It's true. And from that, we set a weekly non-negotiable time. And it's blocked on both of our calendars. All of our friends and people in our communities know now, they never ask us to do anything Saturday after 5:00. They just don't, because they know that's Dai and Christy's date night. Every Saturday night, 5 to 11, that's our date. And we don't have anything scheduled other than it's time together. And then that's
our time. That's our time. I like that. Yeah. I like that. And one of the things I always tell people is that you put important things on your schedule. And so frequently we leave ourselves off our schedule. And there's just this nebulous thing of I'm going to fit my workout in, I'm going to sleep, I'm going to do these things. But if it's not written down, it's not necessarily going to happen. I love that. And I like that you give her credit for it too.
Oh yeah. It's all her. Oh, I'll tell you, a little funny side note here. I remember we were traveling, and this is when we first started our travels. Gosh, I exited out of a career path of 17 years. A month after that, she quit her career. Ooh. 2 months after that, we pulled the kids out of school, gave away our stuff, packed up an SUV with whatever we wanted to keep, and we just started traveling south because it was around January at that time of year. And you can imagine the weather in Vancouver in January, not very good. And we were like, we're going to find sunshine and who knows when we're going to be back. And so we set off and we started traveling for 5 years as a full-time family. And during that process, I'll tell you, you take myself, my wife, our 2 teenage daughters, you throw us all in an SUV and you just go road tripping. I mean, it's tight quarters. you have a tendency, as much as you love and respect one another, you can also get on each other's nerves pretty easily. And my wife was always very quick around the language. She would hear us chatting, or also she could hear us escalating. You could hear the triggering comments, and you can start feeling that vibe right in the vehicle.
Right, like, the tone is changing. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember my wife, she was driving at this one point, and the kids started bickering in the back, and my voice is starting to elevate because I'm like, guys, be quiet, anyways, first thing into my wife's wife, kindness. She's screaming kindness in this tone. And all of us just like stop because she's like shrieking the word kindness.
And I'm guessing she's not normally shrieking and
never. But the funny thing was, she was saying that. We stop, we freeze, and all she keeps saying is kindness. and we all started laughing, and it just changed the mood instantly. But from that point in time, anytime we start to get into these rough arguments, or we know what's going the wrong way, my wife will be like, kindness. Kindness. And it's just so funny. But that says a lot about her and her selection of language and that energy she brings to it. So
hey, that's the safe word. Kindness is the safe word.
Yes, big safe word. And so but yeah, it was funny, because she's always just been a big person around language, and so we always love that. But that's like one of her mantras, just be kind.
Well, that's good. And you've kept it up, and I would imagine some other people have seen that and probably modeled their relationship after, because when you see something that's working, that's what makes sense. Because I would think that some of what you guys saw when you realized we can't stay this course is at least what happened with me was I was seeing other people, and they're not talking to each other, the phones all the time, the no eye contact. And you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that couple.
Never. Never. And but to be fair, there's moments, right? It takes work, it takes commitment.
Yes. And that's honest.
Yeah.
That's honest.
It's true.
It's not all fun.
No, it's not all easy. But it's always worth it. And I think that's the important note. Things that are worth working for are worth it. It just, and we've always said, the easy thing is to break up and go our separate directions. That's easy. That's the easiest thing we could do, is say, you know what, we give up, we're going our separate ways. I mean, that's an easy out. It's the common out. But for us, it was like, you know what, this thing that we have, this life that we have, I mean, has it really changed that much? No. Is it worth fighting for? Heck yeah. And so it's just creating that intentionality, the commitments, and just, it doesn't have to be every day, all day. My goodness. I mean, that would be overwhelming for anybody, but it's purposeful deposits of time and energy and attention and love. And, so it's just a matter of choosing your days and blocking it in and not negotiating around that, and that's what's worked for us. It really has. And, it gives us something to look forward to together every week as well. And I invite anybody out there that's listening or watching this, just try it. Just set one night a week aside and it's non-negotiable. Both of you would come to an agreement on that. And you let people know, if you're ever asked to go do something, it's like, no, I got a commitment. I got a date already. I'm dating my wife that night. Sorry. And trust me, eventually everybody gets in.
I like the frequency too, because I know people try a lot to make it once a month, but just really once every 30 days is in the fast-paced environment we are in, with so much pulling at you and so much stress. I really like once a week, we're going to make some time for each other at a minimum. Once a week, we're going to have some dedicated time. No kid, just us connecting. That's smart.
I appreciate that you made that distinction as well, Dr. Mo, because it's that compounding effect, right? Like if it was only once a month, I mean, that's 12 dates a year.
Right.
I mean, that's not very much time, but once a week, well, good. Now it's 52 dates a year, right? Like that's a significant multiple. and with that frequency and consistency, good things are bound to happen. They really will. They really will. Yeah.
If something's important to you, you commit to it. So beautiful. What other lifestyle habits have had the most significant impact on your life? Because that's a good one for starters.
Well, here's an interesting idea, and I'm just going to invite you to consider this. As much as it's important to think about the things and acknowledge the things that we do, I think it's equally important to recognize there's things that we may want to opt to not do. and that can become a habit in itself as well. A habit of just remembering or reminding yourself, no, I don't need any of that. Now, what I mean by that is, like, there's been periods in my life where, from an early age, as a young teen, a preteen to teen years, I was dealing with a lot of emotional and I would say some psychological stress as well. Just my mental health was being challenged. I was in a state of morbid obesity. So I was very overweight, very unhealthy, dealing with a lot of symptoms that come with that state of unhealth. And my mental health was really in a bad place because of that as well. Also, the pressure from schools, like all the stigmas or cliches that we are familiar with. I mean, that was just my life. Okay. And as much as kids can be mean, teenagers can be cruel.
Ooh.
And the bullying was
teenage
tough.
girls.
Yeah. Well, that was one of my motivations for wanting to get healthy. I wanted a girlfriend. I wanted someone to want. I wanted to feel like I had some value to offer, and someone saw that value in me. And but early on, I learned how to eat my emotions. I also learned how to distract myself from my current everyday presence in my life. And that was through video games, watching movies. And then, I recognized that certain foods I would eat, and it wasn't like I was sitting around eating big bowls of salad, it was very nutrition poor, yet calorie rich foods. But it gave me that instant mood uplift. And that's what I was chasing, that constant feeling, because I wasn't getting that in my life. And, you go down that path for like 5 years, it's not going to lead you to a good place. It just won't. It's that compound effect in the negative way. And so when I made those initial shifts at 15 years old, I was like, I want to get healthy. I don't want to be like this anymore. And if I'm perfectly honest, I was more afraid of the idea of not changing than I was of the idea of actually changing. Even though I had no idea how to change, but it really got down to it. I was like, I'm more afraid that in the next 5 years, by the time I'm 20, if I keep doing what I've been doing, between the age of 10 to 15, I mean, it didn't get easier. It actually got a lot harder. And I got a lot bigger. Well, if I don't change my course 5 years from now, will I be any healthier than I am right now? No, I won't be. And that scared me. It really did. There was a lot of fear there. There was a lot of emotions. And I just got to a place where I was like, okay, enough's enough. I need to make some changes. And I was very fortunate that when I expressed that to my parents, their eyes lit up and they're like, what? Because before that, they were trying to help me. They were offering to get me a personal trainer, find me a nutritionist or a dietitian to work with, maybe go see a therapist, like they were always encouraging, trying to help their son become happy. Like any parent, we don't like to see our kids sad. We don't like to see them withdrawn. We want them to be engaged and loving life and having fun and being happy. And I know that was really hard on them, seeing me like that. And
especially during those years when, which are, really typically very fun times of childhood.
Typically. And so when I came to my dad, especially, I was like, Dad, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want to be healthy. He's like, eyes lit up. He's like, oh, great. What would you like to do?
I got you. What do you need? I got you.
That was exactly it. There was no real discussion. It was instant. Yes. How can we support you? And I was like, well, I used to like riding a bike when I was a kid. Maybe we can get me a bike. Cause I was like, I'm not going to a gym. I mean, I'm going into a place with all this steel I have no understanding how to use. Plus I got mirrors reminding me about how I look. Okay. I'm like, I'm not going there.
Not yet.
This is in the 80s too, when step aerobics were just huge and people, wearing the MC Hammer pants and like little spaghetti strapped tank tops. I remember Randy that ran the club I eventually joined. I mean, he was a spitting image of, well, just the typical 80s hairband guy, right?
Gotcha. That's what I was picturing, was the white sweatband around the head. Yeah. And the color.
He actually had a blue one. It was blue. But so you nailed it. And it was challenging, right? Like just being in that place. And so cycling was something I could do on my own terms. It was very freeing. I wasn't bound to anything.
Right.
And so I just started moving with some purpose every day. I started to educate myself on nutrition. And, within 20 months, I had released most of that excess weight and I developed a new lifestyle. But just case in point, to close the loop on what you're asking about these lifestyle habits, that was when I first learned that I, through my choices and my actions, can literally change my health. Like I can do this. By doing these certain actions and repeating it consistently, like getting up for a bike ride every day or 5 days a week, changing how I was eating, how I was nourishing myself, fueling my life. And within literally a month and a half, I had noticed some significant shifts. Getting up in the morning, it wasn't as achy. In fact, even just tying up the shoes or climbing the stairs didn't seem like such a workout anymore, wow. And there was even this big hill on the bike ride that I remember day one. I mean, I made it a third of the way up the hill and I had to stop. Like I couldn't get the bike to move forward anymore. Now my old mindset would have just said, okay, well, give up. You can't do this. Turn around and go home. But I was committed. I was decided I'm not going to be unhealthy anymore. And so I walked the bike to the top. And each day when I'd come back to that hill, my goal was to go a little bit further. 6 weeks in, I remember I just kept my head down, kept going. And next thing you know, I'm like, I'm at the top. I'm here.
That had to be an amazing feeling. I get chills just hearing it. Yes.
That was the moment that I knew that change was possible. And it was possible because I chose for it to happen. I put in motion the steps and the actions to create that result for myself. And that's where I really felt self-empowered around change and around my health. And that was a valuable lesson to learn, because then that's influenced me every day for the rest of my life to this point. I'm now 46. So we're talking 30 years later. And this is still very near and dear to me, this truth, if you will, this experience. And so my relationship with change shifted based on that. And I made some other choices around that. But when it comes to lifestyle, I made a commitment then that it wasn't like sugar and certain other types of foodstuffs and certain pastimes, like watching movies and playing video games. Like I realized that those habits that I had weren't actually serving me as far as the person I wanted to be.
Right.
And so it was creating a habit that would do less of that, but more of something else. And that's how I've sort of continued. So some of the things I do now, every day I drink at least a gallon of water.
Mhm.
I get out for at least a 30-minute walk outdoors in the air, whether it's cold, rainy, hot, it doesn't matter. I'm getting out for 30 minutes in the air. Also, I like to write. So sometimes I journal, sometimes I don't, but sometimes I read, sometimes I don't. I'm stimulating my mind a lot, trying to get clarity. I also meditate a bit here and there, not consistently, but enough that it makes a positive shift for me. It allows me to regulate some of my emotions and be more present. So those are some of the habits that emerged from that initial lesson, because I realized it didn't matter what I do. If I commit to doing it, I create some space in my life to do it consistently and frequently enough, it will become part of my life.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. That was that lesson that I picked up at 17 years old. That's really served me well up to this point.
And, it's just remarkable, one, that at that age, you were able to shift your mindset to that degree without some external pressure to do so. And it sounds like your parents were supportive and not, sometimes parents, well-meaning, they'll, start calling their kids names or fixing them something different to eat or doing, kind of shaming. And that's really, not going to lead to a positive outcome. It rarely does. You just get a lot of resentment. If you get compliance, there's resentment with it. So it sounds like you had a really good supportive network. But the thing that really resonates with me was that line you said about just going a little bit further each day, because that's been the story of my life as well, because I'm small, I'm not particularly fast. I was telling someone the other day, the way I kept from getting beat up when I come across bullies was that I could make them laugh. That was my saving grace. And if they didn't have a sense of humor, I'd help them with their homework. But
great strategies.
And that was my thing, was what can I keep getting better at? What can I keep growing at? And then it gave me a sense of achievement when I realized that writing and language and communication was my thing. That, so it's folks, and our message here is find your thing. You don't have to be great at it. Just try to get a little bit better every day until you reach greatness. We don't start out at greatness. And people see that, but they miss the incremental steps, the stair steps of getting to the top of that hill or the pedal in your case. So
yes, actually, Dr. Mo, you just remind me, because you're riffing on what I remember, that book by Jim Collins, Good to Great. And Jim Collins always maintained the only thing that prevents us from achieving a lot more greatness in life is that we get so confident, or maybe the better word is we become more comfortable with being good enough. And so there's like that idea that we're settling for less. It's like almost like the word content. Like, I don't like that word very much because it implies, right, that, well, I'm just content with where I'm at, but it doesn't ever really talk about what's next. It's like that settling. And I'm like, why settle? Why? There's always the opportunity to do something a little bit better.
A little bit better, or learn something new. If you really have achieved the ultimate, the zenith of whatever it is you're doing, then that means it's time to shift. So
Absolutely.
that you can continue to grow. Things that don't grow are dead or inanimate. So
I like that. And
here we go. Those were some really great lifestyle habits and some lessons on fitness. I'm going to shift a little bit back to the language. And we were talking about Chrissy and word choices. We have in common that we love words, language. We're professional speakers who have graced the TEDx stage. You've got a wonderful talk I'm going to ask you a question about. But I'm wondering, what role does communication play in your personal relationships with your daughters? You mentioned your daughters, and you've talked about your experience with your parents. How are you doing it better?
Well, to be fair, there's moments of greatness there and there's lots of moments of improvement, and I can get better. And to be fully transparent, I've just really recently re-engaged with a therapist to work on this specifically, the communications, especially with my 19-year-old. She, I constantly am, I apologize, but jokingly, only because I'm like, you are so me. I'm like, you are me, and I am sorry. Like, I gave you half my DNA and obviously a whole lot of my traits, the good, the bad, and the oh boy.
They can be so blunt. It's not even, it's true, but it's so crushing and cuttingly true.
It is.
Like, wow.
It's tough. And, we've had moments where we struggle at connecting and communicating, and it never leaves me feeling very good, because I love her so much, unconditionally, no matter what. She's still my baby, 19-year-olds or not, it's like, but yet there's times, especially around the tense moments, to break through those barriers, to find that common ground, to find resolve, to reestablish connection. And I've been struggling with it, with her. And so I've just engaged someone to literally help me with that and get clearer on how I can better do that. Where alternatively with my 17-year-old, no problems there. Like, it's easy peasy, and her name's Bree. And so we always say, breezy. She's very breezy. And we have just a different relationship, and it's much easier. It feels communication sometimes comes a little bit easier, less forceful, less effort. And I think it's because we're not as alike. We have similarities, but my eldest, oh my goodness, I'm like, you are so me, and I'm sorry. So
I understand, and I can say to you and her, I lost my dad last year, about a year ago.
Sorry for
He's
your loss.
91.
Wow.
And thank you. But yeah, we went through periods in my teens and, in my early 20s, mid 20s, early 30s, where, it was a strain. And I look back and it was a lot me, but you just get to that point where you just think so much. That's a lot of the problem. And we were a lot alike, and we both thought we knew everything. And somebody's got to compromise, which it should have been me. But yeah, we did some head bumping. There were times I didn't want to talk to him, and now that he's gone, as I watched him fade away, it was just so stupid. You wish you could take it all back, but I can say that we got to a happy place. I think as my kids got older and I realized how freaking hard it is to be a parent.
You're right.
Oh, it is so hard, and you never stop being a parent. It never gets to a point they're not your girls or your boys, and it's tough, but I applaud you, because we didn't do that, and we should have. But of course, mental health things were not,
correct.
Looked on like they are now. Yeah,
that's right. The resources. Just the amount of conversations and content that supports us in the books, and it's just a very accessible conversation now. And I think that's great. It's a sign that things are shifting into a better place, in this world of ours. And at least I like to think that, I
like to think that as well. And I'm hearing more and more men and people of color who have historically been groups that did not see, mental health, but it's just another body part, your brain, you got a doctor for everything else. I don't know how you got that stigma, but I'm for it. I'm about it. As my son say, I'm about it. So
we're on the same page with that one. And but I was a slow learner, I gotta admit. I came to it not by choice, let's put it that way. Like it sort of came out of necessity and a want. And that was actually partly what I addressed in the TEDx talk, was this sort of journey that I found myself on, and my lack of, or my inability to be vulnerable, to ask for help and open up and talk about the hard stuff. And to be fair, that was modeled to me by my dad. As you were mentioning about your relationship with your father, it just brought back some flashbacks to my dad. I lost my father 5 years ago to pancreatic cancer. And thank you. Sorry. Yeah, it was hard. It was tough, and we just always struggled connecting with my dad. So, my relationship with Charnay, I'm constantly thinking about my relationship with my dad. And I don't want that for her.
Right.
I just don't. Like, my dad and I, we loved each other, but did we ever say that to each other? No. Did we really talk about anything above the surface? Not really. And did I really know my dad? Not really. Did he really know me? Not really, but could we? Yeah, we could have, but he was of a different generation. And I'll tell you, he grew up with parents that never said, I love you. Don't cry. It was very
no affection.
Yeah, all of that. None. Like, you don't emote. My dad was always very stoic, but the only real emotion I saw him express was occasionally humor. It was very dry and witty humor, very funny, or anger. It was, but it took a lot to get him going. So if my dad got angry, it was like, exit the house, get out of here.
Yeah, because he'd been holding it back.
Yeah, exactly.
So, thankful for them, and we're here because of them. But, lessons learned, and how can we continue to improve on that legacy, on that inheritance of family relationships? So good for you. And I wish you and your family all the best with that. Keep it up. And I also, for those who are listening now, you're wondering about this TED Talk, I will post a link to it in the show notes. I'll have a link to it. And I was telling you, I tried to watch it today, but for whatever reason, Ted wasn't feeling me today. So that's on my list for tomorrow, actually, because I still really want to hear it. I love listening to talks. Awesome. Let's talk about, speaking of, how to be a champion of change. I think we've touched on that a little bit, and not a victim, though, specifically.
Change is interesting, right? Like, I always, if you think about Buddha, and I'm not trying to be secular here. Okay. We're talking non-secular, but let's just talk about some of Buddha's teachings, or what he talked about like 2,600 years ago. Right. And he said there was one truth that we can't dismiss and that we have to agree to. And it's been echoed a lot by a lot of other great thinkers since. It's actually been proven by science to be absolutely 100% true. It only took us 2,500 years to catch up to what Buddha was talking about. And the one thing that he said that really resonated with me when I really grabbed hold of that and started to believe that. And I mean, believe it. Like, when you really believe something and you align that belief to how you live your life, watch out, changes happen, and they happen pretty quick, because you start to release other things that maybe you were holding on to. Case in point, he talked about the universe, and the nature of the universe is impermanence. Nothing stays the same ever. Everything's in a constant state of change.
Right.
And, science has proven this to be absolutely true. It doesn't matter if that's a solid table there in front of you. It's got atoms in there, and there's a whole lot more space than there is stuff. and it's going to change. 1,000 years from now, it'll be something different, and when we start to accept that, and we start to accept how that shows up for us in our lives, we start to realize that, as much as we try to hold back change happening, it's going to happen whether we like it or not, and I think I used to get a lot of personal grief, and what I mean by that, just I'd find myself in tough situations where I'd like something exactly as it was, or I'd have this amazing experience or this amazing job and amazing friendship group and a wonderful life partner, just things feel like, wow, okay, I'm here. This is where I've been working for. This is what they mean by the secret of life, the happiness, like I'm here. And then you wake up tomorrow and it's like, where did it go? And we find ourselves thinking, geez, that's hard and it sucks. And woe is me. And, change is going to happen whether we like it or not. So why not learn how to roll with it a bit more willingly, or at least with a more positive outlook, because it's going to trickle over into other areas of life in another positive way too. And so this idea of being a champion of change, if I refer back to that story I shared about when I was a kid in that morbid obesity state, and especially getting on that mountain bike and going up that hill, right? Like, that was hard. It was hard. And at the beginning days, honestly, I didn't know if change was going to be possible. I honestly felt like maybe I'm destined to be like this for the rest of my life. I mean, you can't help but feel that, and that's where I was. But I'll tell you, by the end of that 6 weeks, when I made it to the top of that hill, I was like, holy smokes. 6 weeks ago, I couldn't do this. And today I can. That's a whole lot of change that happened really darn fast. And I felt proud of myself. I felt like I facilitated that change by deciding and choosing to do something different than I was doing before. And, it wasn't any expectation of results other than I just wanted to feel better.
Right.
I wanted to feel proud about myself. And that was achieved. And I was like, wow, okay, change happened because I chose for it to happen.
Yeah.
So why not be a champion or an advocate for change in our own lives rather than always trying to fight against it? It's just a different perspective. It's a subtle little shift. You look at that glass and it's half full. Is it half full or is it half empty? We hear these cliched terms now around change, or perspective or thought processes. And it's all a choice,
It's a choice. And we always have options too. That's a terrible state people get into sometimes. They don't want change, or they don't think change is possible.
That's right.
And we always have options. breathing is voluntary and blinking. But right. Other than that, you really have options and you have some control. It will feel like, your mind plays tricks on you. It will feel like you don't, but we do have options in how we proceed and how we go forward. And that's a good thing. That's something to be happy about, because there've been a lot of times when, I've been in some really bad situations, and had I not believed that they could get better and that I had a hand in, helping them to become better, which is not to say you don't need, other people, your tribe and supportive people, but just to keep in mind that, I have some options here in how things proceed, how they go forward.
And I think you actually just reminded me of something too by you sharing that. And thank you for saying that. Because, when we think about us as a species, I just think about humanity, right? Let's talk about humans. Right? But there's 8 billion of us on this planet and counting. That instantly tells me we're very resilient, right to the nature, right to the core. Now, climate change experts will probably say we're too resilient, but that's another conversation. But regardless, there's 8 billion of us here. We have overcome so much suffering and hardship and war and famines and but yet here we are. And we're still going. It's in our DNA as a species, our ability to evolve and to endure and to overcome.
Yes.
But sometimes we forget that. But it's in every single one of us. It's a birthright, and we can thrive in hard situations, tough stuff we can overcome, and we can adapt and we can evolve. And you know what? We just got to remember that. And that's that part of that being a champion of change, that championship mindset specifically around change, ties right into that idea of resiliency. Because I have down days just like everybody else. Do I still struggle with mental health? Absolutely. I have battles of depression here and there. I deal with social anxiety still. But you know what? I have my down days. But my down days don't last like a down month anymore. Okay? It's not down weeks anymore. It's literally down days. And then I bounce back.
Right.
And that's, yeah.
I love that. I talk about scheduling your pity parties. That's what
thank you.
I often talk about. I just, it's going to happen. So why break down randomly when I can select the date and time, pity party, Anderson 2, table for 2.
So good.
Or 3, me, myself, and I. And I just have at it. I think about all the stuff that's bothering me, that I'm sad about, that I'm angry about. And it's just cathartic. I'm just like, this is it. Yeah. This is it. I'm doing it now. And
Dr. Mo, I love that you brought that up, because that reminds me, there was a story that my wife just told me recently about, I guess Jennifer Aniston gave an interview after her and Brad Pitt had broken up. Like I'm not into the whole pop culture and all that stuff, but my wife was telling me about this, and she says, because she knows I love these types of conversations. She said Jennifer Aniston in that article said, was she struggling with this divorce and all that, right? And she said, I gave myself a 24-hour pity party, and then I moved on. I was like, wow, great mindset. I mean, like, there you go. I mean, I don't know if I'd have that same sort of fortitude to just, after a relationship ends, but I appreciated that, I was like, well, good for you. At least, you give yourself the space to grieve, to deal with those tough emotions, and then, okay, done, moving on, so I like your idea though, about I'm going to book a table, make a reservation for me, myself, and I, and we're going to have a pity party, I like that.
We're going to do it right.
I'm using that, and I'm quoting you, Dr. Mo, because I think that's a great strategy.
You are welcome. You shared so many great strategies and tips with me that I will also be sharing. So awesome. That's how we do mutual exchange.
I agree. Yeah.
So my last question before we wrap up is, you have a whole life fitness manifesto.
Yes.
What are the components, and how does it help your physical, mental, and spiritual health?
Well, I've been in the fitness and wellness industries for 28 years.
Oh my.
Can you believe it? I can't believe that.
I can. Congratulations.
Smokes. Thank you. Like 3 decades of helping people with lifestyle changes, and most often the changes start with that 6 inches between the ears, but it's all connected though. It's all connected. And so this whole idea of whole life fitness isn't just about physical fitness. It's about emotional fitness, psychological fitness, financial fitness.
Yes.
But also spiritual fitness, because fitness just simply implies that there's purposeful things that we can do to see improvement or growth or strength developed in those areas. This idea of constant measurable improvement even. But we have to choose, what are we doing? And also, what are we not going to do anymore? That idea of stopping and continuing. I'm going to start doing something new. I'm going to stop doing something that was holding me back. And I'll continue doing those good things that have helped me, and getting that clarity can help. And with the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto, because after 28 years, you can imagine I've probably heard a few different objections when it comes to people's excuses around why they can't discover whole life fitness for themselves. And I always felt for people because I can empathize very well. I live with a chronic autoimmune disease. I overcame a very poor relationship with alcohol and narcotics, and that was a big part of it. I also addressed in my TEDx talk is my battle with those substances and how it affected me, and also being morbidly obese as a teen. Believe me, I can empathize with what it's like to be unhealthy. All right.
Right.
But there's always an opportunity to make a change, to choose to do something different, to choose to lean into the person that we've always said we wanted to be, but maybe we don't feel like we're there yet. That's okay. That's just a guiding light to give us direction, and we got to keep going in that direction to get there. And so what I did was I handled all these objections over all these years, dealt with all different types of backgrounds. And I wanted to come up with a system that would give people a really clear, simple, notice I didn't say easy, because you still got to do some work here.
Very different, right?
Yeah, very different. But it's a simple process. And the process is you commit to 28 days where you're going to commit on every one of those days 2% of your 24 hours, which is only 30 minutes. Okay, 2% of every 24 hours is 30 minutes. Now you're going to make this 30 minutes a non-negotiable for yourself. Like what you said earlier about making a date with yourself, right? This is on the other side, rather than just having a pity party, this is going to be you creating a life party for yourself, 30 minutes every day. It's 15 minutes of movement with purpose, which is going to help you with your physical fitness, but it also ties into your mental and spiritual fitness. You're then going to follow that up with 5 minutes of mindful meditation, and follow that up with 10 minutes of focused personal development. That's 30 minutes. That's going to hit your body, your mind, your spirit and soul, and literally you do that for 28 days. Those 30 minutes compound day after day after day. By the end of 28 days, believe me, you will be somewhere different. You'll be looking at things differently. You will be feeling extremely different. But you got to start, and you got to maintain that 28-day commitment. But it's only 2% of the 28 days. It's 2%. It's like
I love that. We don't think about 30 minutes in those terms, but it really, it's like when people tell me, as a dentist, I don't have time to brush twice a day, or I don't have time to floss. Seriously, it's 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes. You can do it as you're walking to the door.
It's true. It's true, right? But it's this positive compounding effect. Now, compounding works the other way too, right? And I think it was Einstein, what did you say? It was like the 8th or the 9th wonder of the world was compound interest, right? And or the two most powerful forces in the universe is love and compound interest. So, but this idea of compounding, the good on good makes great, and making little decisions every day, these micro commitments to yourself that prioritizes you, yourself, and I, so you can see improvement in those areas. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but you got to make some effort. And so I invite people just to start with 30 minutes a day. And I inevitably, and this is funny, Dr. Mo, but I'll always get people saying, "Oh, is that all I got to do?" I'm like, it's the least you deserve, and what's been really amazing is people will often repeat doing 28-day cycles. I always say, do 4 weeks on, take a week off. And it doesn't mean you let go all the good habits that you created. You just give yourself a week to reflect and introspect and retool, refocus, and then recommit to another 28 days. And inevitably, I've seen this over and over and over again with literally thousands of people. They develop this self-confidence and this confidence in their physicality, their emotional fitness, their spiritual fitness, their psychological fitness. They feel more confident in those areas. And when you feel more confident, you're going to want to challenge yourself more because you believe you can do more, and you can. It's just now you finally believe it too. And so I've seen people go off and do marathons, hike mountains, do multi-day treks, like
you've done a marathon. Didn't I set that up on your pages?
I wouldn't say it. Okay. Yeah, I wrote an article. So this is a funny story, and this is what not to do. Okay. And especially as someone in the fitness industry, this is a really bad story because it's not an example. Well, it's an example of what not to do, but it shouldn't be coming from a fitness pro. But anyways, I was invited to go travel around Israel with Vibe Israel, which is their tourism board. I do a lot of writing and a lot of content online. And so they say, hey, we'd like to host you. Come on over here for a week. And we're going to show you all the things that we were very proud of. That's all health focused here in Israel. And one of the things was I got to do a marathon, and I only did the half marathon. Right. And it was Jerusalem. And so you're running over cobblestone through the old, that city's been knocked down and rebuilt so many darn times. It's remarkable.
I'm just picturing it as
it was beautiful. And I got to run through that. But, I ran a half marathon, and what most people it took me, the Nigerians won. Okay. Like they decimated the entire, they crushed it. They were just over 2 hours. Right.
Wow. It's usually 4, right? For the top people to run a marathon.
Top people, they're fast, I basically, I got lapped by them. Okay. That's the bottom line.
But you finished.
I finished.
You finished.
Oh my goodness. I hadn't done any training or prep.
Zero. No.
And I wore a new pair of shoes that I'd never worn before.
Even I know, and I'm not a marathoner, but even I know that people train for a year for a marathon. Oh my goodness.
I didn't do any of that. And so I did end up blogging about it. And I said, the 5 things that you should never do if you're ever going to do a marathon. And so I make fun of myself quite a bit in that, a lot of photos, videos. But, the blisters on my heels, they took 2 weeks to heal. They were awful. And, but you know what? I did finish. It was quite an experience. I got the t-shirt literally to prove it. And will I do it again? No, I do half marathon distances quite frequently now, but always in the mud run format. So I do tough mudders and Spartan races. That's my preferred way of running now because I get muddy. There's people around me. I get to jump on stuff and crawl on stuff. And that to me is entertaining when it comes to running. Otherwise, you're not going to catch me running unless I'm running to catch a bus or I'm running to keep up with the kids.
I'm running late. That's me. I'm running a little late. That's my marathon, is just trying to get to my next commitment. That's what I do.
That is so good. I love that. Well, you did say you had a great sense of humor, and I can attest. Awesome. I love that. Running late. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that goes against my programming. Right from a little kid, I always was ingrained on one of my grandparents, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. And I am the worst because I told you about my anxiety, especially if I'm not within that 15-minute window of being early, I get anxious. My wife, it drives her nuts, right? She's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, we're late. And she's like, no, we got 10 minutes. I'm like, no, we're late. So anyways, that's me. But that was the Whole Life Fitness Manifesto. My apologies. A roundabout way of just saying that it's simple. It's just 2% of every 24 hours you commit to yourself, and it's a non-negotiable that you're not willing to break that date. It's not a date to be broken. It's your date with yourself. Keep it, honor it, because it will make you proud of yourself. But also, that's how changes start.
I like the way you put that. The 28 days, the 2%, everything is manageable, edible. And it's something that anyone can do with just a little bit of commitment. And like we said, folks, put yourself on your calendar, put your relationship on your calendar, your health. It will make a difference going forward. You'll feel better. You look better. And you have your own manifesto. So
you do, and I don't like to be prescriptive at all, but I find that prescription of 30 minutes a day is a great place for people to begin.
I love it. I love it. I hadn't heard that before. It is really good. It's resonating with me. So
awesome.
Before we go, tell folks how the program services, how they can connect with you. You've got so much great advice about health and fitness, and you've been so wonderfully transparent about, things you've overcome and your own challenges. And I always appreciate that in guests. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Mo. Well, I'm just all about impact. If I love creating content and programs and services that help people with making impact in their own lives. And, I find a lot of us just we may not have that champion in our corner.
Right.
That person not only holds us accountable, but the person that sees the potential in us that maybe we just have forgotten how to see in ourselves. When we look in the mirror, we don't see that same potential that we used to.
Right.
And I feel for those people because I've been there a few times. Listen, and it's not a pleasant place to be. And so everything that I do is really geared around helping people get out of that space, to get back into their own life, be engaged, have fun, and really be creative, because you are the architect. Every one of us are the architects for our own lives, and we get to design whatever we want. And the goal is to achieve more fulfillment, joy, and happiness. So everything I do is always geared around that. So I always just say, it always starts with a conversation. Reach out to me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those platforms. Just find me. My name's easy enough to spell once you understand it. Dai, right? Dai, weird name. I know people are probably wondering, what the hell's Dai mean anyways? It's Welsh for David, just by the way. Yeah. And Manuel, though, is Portuguese. Manuel, Manuel. So yes, Welsh and Portuguese. Don't worry about it. I'm Canadian.
It's a beautiful name. Got it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry about it. Either way, I've got lots of, do-it-yourself solutions. I invite people to come to my website, daimanuel.com. There's about 1,700 articles I've published since 2008, since I've been blogging. And I always just say, I'll be unapologetic as far as the invitation to go down the rabbit hole and enjoy it. You'll find stuff, reach out if you have questions, but I'm always up for a conversation with anybody that's wanting to make some changes.
Outstanding. Dai Manuel, Dai Manuel. And he is on all platforms and very active and very easy to communicate with. So going to send folks your way. That'll all be in the show notes. And again, thank you so much. I hope you guys get a little warm streak up there pretty soon. And it's just been a great pleasure having you on Perpetual Motion.
Thank you, Dr. Mo. It was awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you for creating a space for these conversations just to happen. I'm looking forward to being a fly on the wall for future hosted episodes that you get to have other conversations. And just thank you for creating it.
And wasn't that a great program? Oh, love that episode. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Learn more about me on my website, drmoanderson.com. That's MOE. You can read book excerpts, watch videos, learn about my services that I offer, and book me for a speaking engagement. I'd love to talk with your group, and I'd love to work with you. So until the next time, review, renew, and renew. Thank you.